Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a mock neck sleeveless vest. Y'all know I love a modern vest, especially when there's ribbing, and that's exactly what we have here. A ribbed sweater vest that's the quickest, trendiest workup. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new. Trendy crochet tutorials and patterns are here with even more dropping twice weekly, so tell a friend and consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 155 grams of yarn. That's 350 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5.5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us a different food combination that you enjoy. I actually have 2. The first is spaghetti with salt and vinegar chips, and second is peanut butter toast with raw onions. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5.5mm hook and start off by making a chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to like the bottom of this top to be. Now I'd like for mine to be full length, so I'm going to start by making a chain 55, and that's just about 12 inches or 30 centimeters. And I actually already have this portion already completed, so I'm just going to do a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now from here we're going to do a half double crochet row. So yarn over and into that chain that we blocked off, or the 3rd chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a half double crochet. So insert, pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Yarn over into that next chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. So now that we've made our way down with our first row, we have 1 chain left. We're all going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets. So yarn over and into that last chain, insert with 2 half doubles. So there's 1, into that same last chain with 2. Now our row 1 is complete. We should have 1 more stitch than chains that we made. Now the following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So all we're going to do is chain 1, that's our turning chain, and flip our work. Starting with that last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. When we have these 2 loops on our hook, we're all going to yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. We want to make sure that we're pulling through gently, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. And that's it. From here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. We are back and our first 2 rows are completed. From here, it's going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, all within the back loops. So just to get the next one started, chain 2, flip our work. Now put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. So just to do the first, yarn over. Into that last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We've made our way down with our row 3. We all should have left that last stitch. Now we're going to do an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets. So yarn over into that last stitch's back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us, we're going to insert with 1 half double into that same back loop with a second. Now the following row is going to be another slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, and now put 1 back loop, slip stitch into every stitch. So we are back and our first 4 rows are completed. What we're going to do from here is simply continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can stretch from mid-underarm all the way over to the corner of our underarm. Now, we do want to make sure that we're stretching it as if we're wearing it, and also we do want to make sure that we meet back right after a slip stitch row so that we'll be along the bottom. Then we'll meet back so we can continue on with the rest of our underarm portion from there. But after my 4 rows, I'm actually completed with this portion of my underarm. It is a sample size, but I did only use 4 rows for my actual piece as well. Now what we're going to do from here is our following row, which is going to be a half double crochet row, but now instead of an increase of 2, it will be an increase of 3 along the top. So from here, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving that last stitch, then I'll meet you back. We are back. We made our way up with our half doubles, leaving that last stitch. Now into that last stitch, to get a smoother curve going up, we're now going to do an increase of 3 back loop halves. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3 all into that last stitch. Now we should have 2 more stitches than our previous row. Now we are going to need to increase into our slip stitch row as well. So we're going to chain 2. That first chain will count as a stitch for the following row. And here's my second chain, which counts as a turning chain. Now we're going to flip our work. Now into that second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with 1 back loop slip stitch, so yarn over, pull through everything. Then from here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now we've just completed our back loop slip stitch row. We should have 1 more stitch than our previous row. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can stretch from mid-underarm over to the front of our body, so roughly where a bra strap or tank top strap would lay. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row, so there will be a half double crochet row, so that'll end along the top. Then we can get started on the width of the front panel together. So we are back. We have just completed the second half of our underarm portion. I now have a total of 7 rows. This width is just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters unstretched. We all should have ended right after an odd number row, which is along the top. Now from here, we're going to make a chain that reaches mid-chest. Now we do want to make sure that we're placing our tail end still at 1 inch underneath our underarm so that our armhole doesn't become too big or too small. Now I just needed roughly an inch or 2 centimeters, so I just made a chain 5. Then we're going to do our following row, which is our back loop slip stitch row. So from where we're at, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain up a 1. So now that we have our turning chain, into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and pull through everything. We already know how to do these. We're going to continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Then once we reach the body, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we've just completed our first back loop slip stitch row for the width portion of our front panel. Now from here, all we're going to do is just back loop half double, back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So since we're along the bottom, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half into every stitch, making our way all the way up, chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip into every stitch. We're just going to continue to repeat those 2 previous rows with absolutely no increases, no decreases, until we now have a portion that reaches from where our bra strap or tank top strap would sit, so roughly mid collarbone, all the way across our chest to where our other bra strap or tank top strap would lay, so roughly mid collarbone again. Then I'll meet everyone back right after a slip stitch row, so that we'll be along the bottom. Then I'll meet everyone back so we can do our underarm portion together. So we are back. The width of our front panel is completed. I now have a total of 32 rows. This width is just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters. That is unstretched. Now from here, we're going to finish up with our 2 underarm portions, basically the same way that we started them off, but instead of increases, we're going to be doing decreases. So since we all ended along the bottom, we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led up to mid-chest. So for those of you that have my numbers, I made a chain 5. So from this side, counting from the top, I inserted my stitch marker into the 5th stitch. So from here, I'm going to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, making my way all the way up, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. So we are back. We have made our way all the way up with our back loop half double crochets, leaving 3 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we're going to close our row off with a decrease of 3 half doubles. So we're going to start with the yarn over, into that 3rd to last back loop, pull through, 2nd to last, pull through, and last, which should be the stitch right before our stitch marker, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 5, and now we're completed with this row. Now we're going to do our back loop slip stitch row, and that will start with a decrease as well. So chain 1 and flip. Now to do our decrease for our slip stitch row, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, next stitch's back loop as well. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and automatically pull through all 3 of these loops. Now our decrease is completed. So from here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we are back and we have all completed our first 2 underarm rows, and from here all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the second half of our first underarm portion. For those of you that have my numbers, I only had 3 of these rows, so I'll be doing just 1 more, and then once we have the total amount of this portion completed, I'll meet everyone back so we can finish up with the rest of our underarm portion. So we are back. The first half of our underarm portion is complete. My total width now is just about 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Now we're going to finish up with the rest of our underarm portion. So we all should have ended right after a half double crochet row. What we're going to do now is a slip stitch row with no increases, no decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, 1 back loop half into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches. Then I'll meet everyone back. So we have just completed our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and have made our way up with our following half double crochet row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop halves. So now what we're going to do is yarn over and insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on our hook, and now our half double crochet row is completed. Now all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our first underarm portion. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, then I'll meet everyone back. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed our second underarm portion. We now have a total of 10 inches or 25 centimeters that is unstretched. Now what we're going to do from here is the single crochet prep row for the top detail. So we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, because we want to show the front of our single crochet. Then insert our hook into the top corner stitch of our front panel width. Now what we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet row, making our way all the way across. Now right before we get started on that, we do need to make sure that the amount of stitches that we're about to do ends in multiples of 2, but make sure that it doesn't end in multiples of 4. So what I mean by that is that I've already counted out the stitches that I'm going to have along the top. Now, putting 1 single crochet into every side slip, 2 single crochet into every side half, I'm going to end up with a total of 37 stitches along the top of my piece. It needs to end in multiples of 2, so I will be adding 1 additional stitch into that last stitch, but we just want to make sure that that total amount of stitches doesn't end in multiples of 4, because once we go in with our shoulder and neckline detail, we all need to make sure that our neckline ends on a certain stitch so that we don't have to cut and then restart the shoulder portion for the other side. Now I'll explain that more once we get there, but doing the single crochet row, just make sure that we have the correct amount of numbers. Now how we're going to actually do this row is we are going to pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now the chain up of 1 doesn't actually count as a stitch. That's just to secure everything down and finding that same first corner stitch. I'm going to insert my hook in through there, starting with just 1 single crochet. Now into my next side row, which is a side half double crochet row, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, same top loop with a second. Again, into that next side row, which is my side slip stitch, we're going to find that top loop and insert with only 1. Then into the next side row, which should be a side half double crochet, find that top loop and insert with 2. Now continue on with this single crochet row. Remember, it does need to end in multiples of 2, so if you have to add an additional stitch or 2 into that last stitch, go ahead and do that. And just make sure that it does not end in multiples of 4. Then do a chain up of 1 and cut, and I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row. We did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now from here, to get started on the shoulder / chest neckline detail, what we're going to do is insert our hook into that chain space that we made when we got started on our single crochet row. We want to make sure that we're inserting our hook into the chain space, otherwise we may have an additional stitch or 2 left over once we made our way all the way down. So what we're going to do, when our hook is into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain from here that reaches the top of our shoulder. So we do want to make sure that we're still placing this tail end at roughly 1 inch beneath our underarm, because remember, we don't want that armhole to become too big or too small. Then we're all going to make that chain. Now I need roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 11. So we are back. We have just made the chain that led all the way up to the shoulder. Now we're going to do double crochet rows. So how we're going to do that is start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 3. Now that chain 3 doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. From here we're going to yarn over, preparing for a double crochet. And into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a double crochet. So we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's our first double crochet. Let's do that again. Yarn over into that following chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and from here continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. We have now made our way all the way down with our first double crochet row. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches into the base. So here's my first, here's my second. Into that second stitch we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. And once we have that, we're going to work our way up to the following row, which is another double crochet row. So in order to do that, we're going to slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base. So here's my next, insert with a slip stitch, into that following stitch with another slip stitch. Now keep in mind that none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and we're going to flip our work. Now 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, into the last stitch from our previous row, not into any of the slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Again, yarn over into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and continue with 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we are back. Our first 2 rows for this shoulder portion is complete. Now what we're going to do from here is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows, all within the back loops now, until we now have a portion that can reach the side of the base of our neck. Then we can get started on the neckline, but we're all going to need to end right after an odd number row, so that we'll be along the base so we can work straight into the neckline portion together from there. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed the shoulder portion. Now, I just had a total of 3 rows for my shoulder portion, and before we get started on the following row, which is our neckline scoop, we're going to need to do 2 things first. First, we're going to need to count the amount of stitches that we took up for our shoulder portion. How we're going to do that is count 2 stitches for every row that we have. So counting my 3 rows together, I have 2, 4, 6. So what I'm going to do is from the opposite end, insert my stitch marker into the 6th stitch from the outer edge. Now once we reach that stitch marker when we're doing our following neckline portion, that's how we know we're going to get started on the next shoulder portion, and we should have the same amount of rows as this one because we counted out the right amount of stitches. Then right after that, the next thing we're going to do is insert our stitch marker into a stitch that's nearest to the base of our neck, because we want this mock neck to be really close to our neck. So I inserted my stitch marker into the 3rd stitch from the top. That should be just about a ½ inch or 1 centimeter. And now from here, I'm just going to work my way up to the following row the same way that we've been doing this entire time. 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch until our stitch marker is reached. Then I'll meet you back. So now that we've made our way up with our first neckline row, all we're going to do is chain 3, flip our work, and 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch, and that's it. We're going to continue to repeat those 2 previous rows, working into the base the same way that we've been doing this entire time, with absolutely no increases, no decreases until we're worked into the stitch right before our following stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way across until we're worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker stitch. Now before we get started on the following row, this is why we needed to make sure that we had our single crochets in multiples of 2 but was not in multiples of 4, because if it was in multiples of 4 we actually would have ended along the bottom, which would have been fine, but we would have had to do a chain up of 1 and cut and reattach and do a bunch of extra steps that didn't really need to happen. So we all should have ended along the top. What we're going to do from here is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our neckline. So for me that was 3. So I started by making a chain 3. Now we're just going to do our following stitches all the way down. All we're going to do is block off that last chain and chain 3. That's our turning chain. Then yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. Insert with a double crochet, then continue with 1 double crochet into every chain. then one back loop double crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way down. Then just continue to do our back loop double crochet rows with no increases, no decreases. Our shoulder rows should now have the same amount of stitches that our first shoulder row had. Then once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up one and cut, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed the entirety of our neckline shoulder detail. Now once we have that completed, we're going to make a second panel that is exactly the same as the front. So same exact underarm with our back loop half double and slip stitch rows, then our same double crochet chest detail. Then all we're going to do from here is seam up our sides, so we're all going to place our two panels on top of each other, making sure that the ribbing is faced along the outside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam, so finding that first stitch into the front panel, we're going to insert only into that front loop. Then find that first stitch into the back panel and insert only into that back loop. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Let's do this once more. So into that next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. And into the next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Then when we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and we're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. Both of our sides are all seamed up. Now we're going to seam our shoulder. So to seam the shoulder, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we did for the sides is now along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of the front and back panel, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row, working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So finding our first side row within the front panel, insert, first side row within the back panel, insert, and single crochet around everything. Again, into that same side row within the front, same side row within the back. It should be a little bit easier since everything should already be gathered, and we're going to single crochet. Once more, into that following side row, find that top loop. Following side row within the back panel, find that top loop, single crochet once, and single crochet twice. We're going to continue doing this till we don't have any more side rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut. Repeat on the other side, then I'll meet you back. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed seaming up both of our shoulders. Now we're going to work on our mock neck. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our shoulder seam. Then, since we should all have just a few stitches to work into, put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back once when we find our first side row. So now that I've just put 1 single crochet into every stitch and have reached our first side row, all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row, basically the same way that we did our shoulder seam. So just do the first one, insert your hook into that next side row's top loop with 1, same top loop with a second. Now we're just going to continue on with this, making our way all the way around. Once we've made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, then I'll meet everyone back. But just as a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch, so once when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. Then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way all the way around with our single crochet row. Now we're going to work on our mock neck. So first things first, right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the mock neck to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 8. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first slip stitch row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. We already know how to do these. From here, all we're going to do is put 1 slip stitch into every chain, then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So we are back and our row 1 is completed. Now we're going to work it into the base. The base is this single crochet row. So just finding that next available stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now we're all going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding that last available stitch, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop and gently pull through everything on our hook, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. That'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. We are back and we're now at the end of our row 3. Now from here we're just going to connect it into the base the same way that we just did. So as a refresher, simply slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into there, flip our work and put 1 back loop slip into every stitch again. From here all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. They won't have any increases or decreases. Then I'll meet everyone back so we can seam it all together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows for the mock neck. We are all done and now we're going to seam it up. Now this seam is actually going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, then do our same exact outside loop slip stitch seam that we did for the sides. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our mock neck is all completed, the last one we're going to do is just a single crochet row just to clean up our armholes. So what we're going to do is first make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. Then we're going to single crochet all the way up and around. So what we're going to do is put 2 single crochet into every side half double crochet row, 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row, the same way that we did on top of the body portion. Then 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then once we reach our 1 side single crochet row that we have in between the body and the chest detail, 1 single crochet into that side row as well. Just go ahead and make your way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, then do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed single crocheting along our armholes and now we are all done. Now the last thing we have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!